Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy Langhurst, and I'm the Public Access Room Coordinator. My coworker, Kano Young, is on the call with us, as well as our session staff. And today we'll be talking about using the legislature's website. So for those that may not be aware, the Public Access Room is in room 401 on the fourth floor of the Hawaii State Capitol, and we are your office, the people's office. We have public computers that you can use. We have very cold air conditioning if you just want to sit and rest or use our workspace, and we'd love to see you. We've got our phone number and our email address, and we'd love to hear your questions or hear from you. So today's session will be on using the Capitol's website. So we'll primarily be looking at capital.hawaii.gov. A little bit later on, I'll refer more to the Public Access Room website. But really, this workshop is going to be how to find information on the Hawaii State Legislature website. So the first thing I'll point out is that there is a Public Access Room Comprehensive Guide to Using the website. It's under the announcements section on the main page of the capital.hawaii.gov website, and we encourage you to look at that. This is what it looks like, and there's a QR code, and there'll be a few QR codes as we go along today. This QR code will take you to the Public Access Room website where you can access this guide, or like I said, you can get it from that link on the capital.hawaii.gov website. As you're scrolling the capital.hawaii.gov website, at the very bottom of the page, in case you've never looked at it, there are also helpful links if you want to get to other related pages. So, for example, if you scroll down to the bottom of the capital.hawaii.gov website, you can see a link to the Public Access Room or the Legislative Reference Bureau, of which PAR is a part. There are also links to the governor's website and lieutenant governor's website, various offices, county offices. So if you've never taken a look, this could be a good place to get back and forth. Going back to the top of the capital.hawaii.gov website, I'm going to start with the legislature tab. So from the big blue bar at the top, the legislature menu is a drop-down menu when you click on legislature, and you can find out information about the House and House members, Senate and Senate members, the committees, and in a minute I'll talk about the new version of the Find Your Legislator tool. So if I was to click on Senate, it would take me to the Senate page. From there, I could click on leadership or committees, or in this case, senators. And from this page, you can get to the individual pages for each senator. You'll see the orange buttons just above. You could also go to the representatives page or see all the legislators at once if you clicked on Show All. Or you can use the drop-down menu with the year if you want to see who were the senators in 2025 or even farther back. If you were to click on one of the legislators, like Senator Chang, you can get to his webpage. It says what his district is, and the legislators have the option to fill in an about section, provide information on their experience, or any news or links they want to highlight. Going back to that Senate page, and the House has a similar page, I'm only going to show you one though. On the Senate page, they have different contact lists and committee assignments, but two things that we go to fairly often is the Senate Rules link and the Senate Journal. And you can think of the rules as the way the Senate outlines how it's going to handle things, some of the various leadership positions. Um, just things they might want to refer to, or we might want to look at to see how they do things. And then the Senate Journal is any official announcements or debates or votes that happen on the chamber floors on their session, during their session, is recorded in the session journal for the Senate. And you can pick that by year. And you may see that especially at the beginning of session, they may have brief or advanced copies of the Senate Journal, and it could be later on that the official final version shows up. But like I said, both the House and the Senate has this information on their individual pages. So now I want to talk about the new Find Your Legislator tool. And this was rolled out at the beginning of January by the uh, Capitol Webmaster, the Senate Data Systems team. And I think it's really nice looking. So again, starting from capitol.hawaii.gov, looking at the big blue bar, clicking on Legislature, and going to the bottom option on that list for Find Your Legislator. Now, when you use it, you can search by name or address or type in the district. It's got some instructions when it first pops up. If I start typing in the address for the state capital, 415 South Beretania, it'll start to anticipate what address I have. So if I click on that 415, it will give me the option and I click on the View Legislators button. And then it'll bring up both legislators, the House member and the Senate member, for this address. And the nice thing about this is it easily shows you their picture, their district, as well as their phone number and their email address. So a very nice, clean way to figure out who represents either the area where you live or where you work, and the ability to get in contact with them. Going back to the main capital.hawaii.gov page, there's also a committees page. If you click on that, you can easily see the membership of each of the committees. It'll have the chair and the vice chair pictured. You can choose to see just Senate or just House committees or all the committees. And the similar with the senators page that we looked at before, you can also do the drop-down menu to see previous years. In this case, I clicked on the Senate Committee for Agriculture and the Environment. It's showing me who the members are on the left. On the right, when I made this screenshot, there's an informational briefing coming up. I think that is 2 days from now. And if measures had been referred, you could also see the measures that have been referred to that committee, and that'll start to populate. Now, going on to the Events tab, the second option on that blue bar, the second from the left. In case you didn't know, you can get to the legislative calendar by clicking on legislative calendar. And this will take you to the PAR legislative calendar. Keanu just did a session yesterday on the calendar and deadlines. It's posted on our YouTube, the PAR YouTube page. And I'll be sending out an email to those that registered with the recording and the slides later on. We'll also post that on our PAR workshops page. This QR code goes to the current legislature page at PAR to get the same calendar that I clicked on through that legislative calendar link on the capital.hawaii.gov. And if you're not familiar with the PAR calendar, we take the House calendar and the Senate calendar. Sometimes their deadlines are a little bit different. We put it on the front page with the little session days, 1, 2, 3, up to 60 in the bottom right corner. The session days are the days where they're meeting, they're convening in their respective chambers. And then we'll color code the deadlines. So purple deadlines are bill deadlines, blue deadlines are resolution deadlines, and green deadlines are budget deadlines. And then on the back side, this is the picture in the background. We describe what each of those deadlines are. And again, you can call the public access room if you have any questions, and we're happy to walk through this. Going back to the capital.hawaii.gov website, if you didn't know where to find the order of the day, that's also through the events tab. I'm not going to show a picture of the order of the day because there is no order of the day posted yet, but you could look there for the order of the day. Now I'm going to jump to the laws and research menu, still on that big blue bar. The reports and list page is something that we use in the public access room, often when we have a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. And there are two ways to get to reports and lists, either from laws and research, it's the third from the top on that drop-down list, or there's a shortcut in that gray block of 4 at the bottom of the page. And similar to what we've looked at already, on the left side of the screen, you can change the year because this page will search 1 year or a biennium in this case, the second year of the biennium. And you can look at for 2026, because it is the
Mm,
second year of biennium, we can see the Senate carryover measures and the House carryover measures. The bills that did not succeed last year have the opportunity to be picked up from wherever they left off and start moving forward. They don't all get picked up, but they could. And then underneath that, so still kind of in the middle of the page where it says measure introduction, you could see House bills with action taken in 2026 only, or Senate bills with action taken in
mm,
2026 only. We looked at this just a little bit ago, and I think the Senate bill list is starting to populate. I believe there were about 14 bills that have been pre-filed for 2026. And then there's also the link for the combined. The list of the 2025 and the 2026 will also populate as bills are pre-filed. I also wanted to show on the left side, on the deadline tracking, the blue options on the left, there are different ways you can see lists of information. One that can be useful is measures by introducer. So if you wanted to see what your legislator, either senator or representative, introduced, or measures by package. If you wanted to see the governor's package, or if the Legislative Women's Caucus has introduced some bills. And then scrolling down on that same page I was before where it had the carryover measures, as you scroll down on that page, there will also be lists for major deadlines. So if you want to see after the first lateral filing deadline or after the first crossover deadline, what bills are still alive at that point. And so those lists will populate later in the 2026 session once those deadlines have passed. But I just wanted to make you aware that as you scroll down, there will be other types of reports that you can easily get to. If I was to click on a House Bills Introduced tab, and I'm using an old version since today's the very first day that bills could be filed, you will get a list of all the measures. If you clicked on Measure Status at the top of the column heading, you could get it to sort differently. Or if you click on Current Status, if you click twice on Current Status, it'll bring up the bills by most current action uh, most recently. So often in the public access room, we'll do this because anything that only ever got referred, for example, especially if we're looking in March and things haven't moved since January, we know those are most likely dead. And so we want to push those to the bottom of the list and really focus our attention on the bills that are still moving at the top. And then, of course, you could also sort it by introducers or the current referral that's on the far right of that column heading. The other thing we use in the public access room is the subject search. So going back to that main reports and list page, the blue options on the left, the very bottom one is subject search. Again, this is going to search 2026 bills or this session bills. So also, so not going farther back, but you've got that option to do the year up at the upper left corner. When I go into subject search, I can search by the measure number, the measure titles, and the report titles in the description. And the report titles I also think of more like keywords. So it's not searching the full text of the bill. So I'm going to type in a word here, and the word I typed in for this example was student. You can see the bigger page in the background, and in the foreground of this slide is just a little bit closer so you can read it. The same thing that I talked about is I could click on measure status or I could click on current status to resort it. And in this case, if I had gotten 129 record results for the word student, and this comes up on other pages as well, you could do a Control F search from your keyboard. And so if I was looking for school lunch, I could then search of this report of students, how many times was lunch brought up if I was looking for more information about school lunch. Going back to that reports and list page for subject search where it says that it's only searching those few fields, then on the foreground of this slide with the border around it, it's HB 1561, and you can see what I mean when I say measure title, report title, and description. So those are the only three fields that the subject search is searching. And next is the new primary search if you want to search more than just those fields. So the new primary search, like I said, when the with the Find Your Legislator tool, this was rolled out at the beginning of December. It's replacing, for those of you who used it in the past, there used to be a keyword search at the top of the page, which was really pretty clunky. And I think what the Webmaster team has done is really a great improvement. It looks so much nicer and it's got a lot of new functionality. So I'm pretty excited about it. When you click from the main capital.hawaii.gov webpage, if you click in that search box, it'll automatically open up a box that says filter by and give you the option to filter your search by different contents. If you don't search anything, if you don't click on anything, it'll do an all content type search. But if you wanted to, you could filter by measures, by the bills and resolutions, by hearings, by HRS, by legislator, by committee, and by documents. And again, from this capital.hawaii, the main page, there is a search, or I'm sorry, a help button. And if you click on that, it describes what each one of those content types is. So the measures is searching bills, resolutions, department communications, GMs, things like that. And from there, I will highlight, and we'll keep talking about this, the document search searches for PDF documents and reports. So a document search will search the entire text of a bill or a measure. So going on from here, if I was to have typed in student lunch, um, when it comes up, you can see at the top, I've got all content is circled as one of the six measure or six content types, I should say, at the top. And again, I could change that to just measures or just documents, for example. On the left side of the screen now, there are a lot of filter options. I've circled the search precision box, which could be switched all the way to broad, and that's if you wanted to search, maybe if you misspelled something or something like that. Or you could go all the way to exact. In this case, it defaults to moderate, so the middle. And so on my first result there, SCR 134, Senate Concurrent Resolution 134, and it's showing me a document. And so after SCR 134, it says HSCR 2097.pdf. So that's a document where it's searching the entire content of the PDF. The HSCR refers to a House Standing Committee Report number 2097. And circled is student lunch. And so you can see it's considering student and lunch as two separate words. If I went broader, it would look for those two words less as a phrase, but still independently as two words since there's two yellow boxes. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is on the lower left side of that filter section, you can see that measures is selected. So if I wasn't interested in measures, I could uncheck measures. But in this case, you can also select by session year, and you can search as many as those as you want. So I could click just 2024, only 2024 and 2023, for example. If I go on and take it from an all content search to just documents now, and now I've also from that search precision area, I've pulled it over to exact. Now you can see from my first result, which is Senate Resolution 113, that it's searching for student lunch as a phrase as opposed to the two individual words that it was before. And you can see that I'm searching by session. So I've got 2026, 2025, and 2024 selected. And I will say that you can export and you can print these lists as well if you want to use them in other ways. Let's see. Going on, the other thing I wanted to highlight is we looked at the help button when we were still on capital.hawaii.gov. If we look at it from the actual search page, it provides more information, and we'll continue to talk about this. But documents in this case, the definition is that legislative documents include measures, committee reports, testimony, session laws, hearings, allowance reports, and other legislative materials. So, for example, another one that I know is in there is grant and aid, the GIA applications. So do use this help button. It's different than the earlier help button. The earlier one was just kind of a description of what the content types were. The help button from once you're in the primary search screen is very extensive. There is a lot of information about it, what this new tool does. So if I was scrolling on through documents, I wanted to continue to highlight that back when we looked at the subject search from the reports and list page, that was only searching the most current version of the measure. It's only going to bring up one result. In the document search, because there are different versions of the documents, this is bringing up a testimony file for HB 1293 for the Senate Draft 1 when WHAM discussed it on April 2nd of 2025. And then the same bill has a testimony file for finance. You could also search for an organization name or a person name. And then it's also bringing up a result for a department communication 530. And again, this is a document search and it's searching the PDF files. And then if I go on even more, now I can see that HB 424, as an example, it's bringing up the results, not only HB 424.pdf, the number 9 result at the bottom of this page, but it's showing me the number 8 result, which is the first time, the first draft that the House made when it was in the originating chamber. Now I can see the HB 424 HD1 PDF. And above that, the HD 424 HD2, the second time the House made a draft. And so all of those are showing up in the document search from this primary search tool. Another thing that I think is pretty cool from this new primary search is a legislative process timeline. This shows up for bills. I just pasted on from the help menu this important note that points out that this timeline, while it shows you where it is in the process, it isn't showing you if the bill has died. It's only showing you where it's last moved. So for the example that has this new legislative process sticker on it, this is telling me that it went through the introduction step and the first reading step. This is a 2025 bill, and it was referred to committees on January 16th, and nothing happened after that. So looking at it right now, I would know that bill is dead for 2025. It does have the ability to carry over for 2026. The other thing this timeline is not showing you is the committees. It's not showing you that it is passed a committee or which committee it is in. The result just underneath it, HB 1462, that I kind of covered up with the important note picture, underneath that, we can see that the Committee on EDN recommended the measure be deferred. They made a specific motion to take this action. So there's in gray there, it gives us a little bit more information about the fact that this bill isn't moving forward, but it's because that committee did that. On the earlier example, we don't see that because the Education Committee in that case didn't schedule it. So take it with a grain of salt that it's not going to tell you that the bill is dead. It'll tell you the last step taken. Other things I want to show is on the circled is a 2025 and a 2024 result. This primary search tool will show you multiple results, multiple years in the results, and it color codes it. So while these two are pretty close in color, I think 2023 or 2022, for example, is like an orange color. So I think that's a really nice feature as well. So it tells you the year and it also gives a color. So kind of two ways of looking at that. And then we still have that filters menu on the left side where I've got multiple years selected. If I knew that I was only looking for a House bill, I could limit the search by chamber. And again, this is something that will show up for measure results. So it's not going to show up for if there was an SB 43 SD1, you wouldn't see it there because that's a PDF search. It's showing up on the measure search. And then if you clicked on SB 43, or I think even if you click on the text, that's when it'll take you to the bill status summary page that we're used to seeing. And then again, this is a screenshot of the larger help button from within the primary search menu or search results. So clicking on that, we can see that it describes the content types available. There's a whole bunch of information about understanding the legislative timeline, including some examples. There really is a lot of information here. So I would recommend if you think you're going to use this tool, take a look at this help page because they put a lot of work into it. All right, moving forward a little bit more. If you were to still type in a bill number, if I was looking for HB 300, I could just type it in the same way I could before December last year, and it'll take you to the measure status page. Um, on this page, we've got a QR code to PAR's handout of how to read a measure status page that kind of goes into more detail about what to look for on this page, what the versions are, more on the committee reports, the testimony files, the hearing notices. So you'll still get here if you just type in a bill number, if the bill exists. Going back to the primary search, I also wanted to highlight the HRS search is a little bit different than it was before. In this case, I have isolated my search to just HRS, and you can see on the left side of the screen, now I could filter it by volumes of the HRS. If you did use it in the old advanced search option, the keyword search, where the keyword search was, that would take you, when you clicked on the result, to just an image of the HRS page. Now, when you click on it, so if I clicked on this result number one, it actually takes you into the HRS, and so you could easily move forward or backwards in the HRS file. So I think that's another really nice improvement for those that use this. And then one more in the primary search, if you did want to search for session laws, because that was an option on the old keyword search uh, tool that they had before. Now, if you want to search session laws, you need to go in Documents, and then you can click Session Laws as a category. So you can see that on the left side filter menu circled there. And here's another example where, excuse me, this is a 2019 session law, which is kind of a mustard color. Uh, all right, now I'm going to go on to the participate tools. These are largely the same as they have been. You can get to these participate tools either by logging in at the top or clicking this participate menu and then logging in. So the first one I'm going to talk about is hearing notices. It's important to get the hearing notices as soon as they come out because there is such a tight turnaround when hearings are scheduled. So once I'm in the My Legislature tool, and you have to be signed in to do this, you click on Hearing Notices, and you can opt to sign up by measure to receive individual notifications when a bill is scheduled, or sign up by committee. The signing up by committee can be interesting, but it can also be a lot of emails. And the emails you get don't go into a lot of detail about what has been scheduled. It gives you a file that you can click on to see the hearing notice. So sometimes you might sign up to receive by committee, decide it's too many emails, and then go back to the subscribe by measure. Um, So I'm going to go ahead and click forward. This is an example of what the hearing notice will look like. So it has the committee, the chair and the vice chair, the date, the time, the room, the list of measures scheduled, and then any additional guidelines at the bottom about how to provide written testimony. If testimony is going to be limited to 1 or 2 minutes, it might be here. They'll have the instructions as well as the committee clerk contact information if you need to get in touch with them. Other ways to find upcoming hearing notices, again, you'll get it as soon as it's scheduled if you sign up to receive the emails, but you could also go back to the capital.hawaii.gov main page, click on events from the blue bar at the top, and click on upcoming hearings, or you can see from those 4 gray options with the yellow buttons, there's also a hearings button. One thing I want to highlight from this hearing notices page is if you click on this YouTube link, it will take you directly to that YouTube session for that exact meeting. Later on, we'll talk about there are other places where you can get to YouTube, but you may have to find the committee playlist and click around. This is very nice because it takes you directly to the YouTube meeting for that exact session. And if you want to find past hearing notices, you can go back to the Laws and Research dropdown, clicking on Reports and Lists. And there on the blue items on the left, there's a hearing notices option, and you can see past hearing notices. And from this view, you can see the agenda, or you could click on the bill number. Back to the hearing notice example, it will say a live stream of all Senate or all House committee. It might be slightly different language. Goes to the Senate YouTube channel in this case. Again, this is going to take you into the YouTube page and not as directly to the meeting. If there were multiple meetings scheduled in one day, for example, you might see multiple things listed as opposed to when we were looking at the current hearings, it took us directly to the meeting. You can click on playlists to see other sessions that, in this case, WHAM was doing as informational briefings in 2025. Or you could go from the Hawaii State Senate YouTube page and see different playlists by committee or for conference or the chamber session. So there's a lot of options here. Or you can click back from capital.hawaii.gov, the blue bar at the top under events. You can go to the live and on-demand video link, and then you can see, easily find the YouTube link for the House or for the Senate, as well as an archive. Going on to those participate options, the functional tools of having an account for the capital.hawaii.gov. From the My Legislature, once you're logged in, you can click on Submit Testimony. You can also do this from a Measure Status page. There'll be a Submit Testimony button there. And this is this gets you to the form you use to submit testimony, to sign up to provide written testimony, or as well as you want to provide oral testimony, you can do written and in person or written and via Zoom. Once I'm on the Submit Testimony page, I can type in my bill number, and then it takes me to the Submit Testimony page. If the bill has been scheduled for a hearing, you can submit testimony. You cannot do it in advance. So in this case, I can see that SB 16 that I typed in on the left side search bar is scheduled for a meeting with the Hawaiian Affairs Committee in room 224 on January 26th of 2023. It'll pre-populate the name that you registered your account under. You can indicate if you're, going to provide testimony in support, in opposition, or comments only. You can provide testimony as an individual citizen or on behalf of an organization. You may want to double check that you are authorized to speak on behalf of an organization. For example, just because you work for an organization, you might not have the speaking points that they want to highlight. If that's the case, you can still say in your testimony, I am an employee of, or I'm associated with this church or this school, but just kind of keep that in mind. And then this is where you can say you're providing written testimony only, in person with written testimony, or requesting to submit testimony via Zoom with written testimony. Usually we'll tell people if there's any chance that you think you might need to do Zoom testimony, it's easier to select that and then show up in the room than it is to do the reverse. It's very hard on the day of a hearing to switch to find out the Zoom details. PAR does not get the Zoom details for every single meeting. And then you have the option to attach your written testimony as a file. For example, if you've written it in advance or you've got letterhead you want to use, or you can choose to type your comments in the text box. But you can only attach or type comments. You cannot do both. And then I also just wanted to highlight that you want to make sure and hit the submit button, not the save progress, when you're ready. If you do the save progress, they're not going to get it until you hit submit. And then also just keep in mind that anything you submit as written testimony will become something that other people can see. It'll get loaded into the capital.hawaii.gov page. Once you've submitted your testimony, there'll be a list on the left side menu of your submitted testimony. It'll say the measure number. It has a position icon of support, oppose, or comments only. It'll be in green if you've successfully submitted, or orange if not yet submitted. And now there is a status column that says submitted, in case anybody's colorblind. So I think that's a nice improvement. And then you can click view to see what you submitted. This is also where if you submitted or a request to submit testimony via Zoom, it will say Zoom requested. And then a couple hours beforehand, maybe an hour beforehand, it'll have a join button. It'll turn into a join button. Keep in mind that they're not emailing out the Zoom details. You need to log back into where you submitted your testimony to get that join button. All right, going back to the website, the last thing I wanted to cover on the Participate tab is if you want to create a measure tracking list. So in this case, you can create a list. That's the first step. For example, in this version of this account, we had created a 2025 measures list. You would type in the name and hit create list. It would populate right below it. Once you have that, you could click on show list. And then it'll open up, and now you can see where you can enter the numbers. You can add the measures. So right now the list is empty. Just to be clear, on the left side where you're creating a list, you don't want to put every single bill there because that takes away the point of having it in a tracking list. So you want to create your list first and then enter your bills. You can have more than one list, but you don't want to have a list for each bill. So you can type in your bill number individually and then hit add measure, and then it shows up in your list of measures for that report. You can also put a group of measures separated by a comma and load a whole bunch at once, and then it'll populate that list to have those. It will let you add a note. So for example, if I wanted to say I want to keep a coworker up to date so that when I generate the report, it reminds me of which measures go to whom or what I'm looking for, you can include that. And then once your list is ready to go, you can log back into this page and click generate report every day, once a week, whatever makes sense to you. The benefit of this is that you're not having to go in to the main website and look up each bill individually every time you want to see. You can just create your list, click generate report, and now every time you generate it, it'll have the current status listed. It'll update it for you. So you can search it by measure number. So if you want to search all the HBs at the top or the SBs at the top, you can click on that. You can also click on current status. Again, clicking it twice, clicking the column twice will bring the most recent activity to the top and put the bills that are not moving to the bottom. So right now I can see there's the first result, the last status was February 3rd, and then July 12th, and then July 13th. If I was to click it twice, it goes July 13th, July 12th, June 13th, March 16th, etc. And then you could also sort it by introducers and referrals. And remember, every time you want to generate the report, you just log back in and go to generate report, and you can see that. I believe a new change for this year is that when you add a list to a measure tracking or add a bill or resolution to your measure tracking report, it'll automatically be added to get you a hearing notification. So that's a nice enhancement that I think the Senate Data System said that they were going to be adding. And then just a few more takeaways on tracking list. You can create more than one list if you want. We suggest you print it out in landscape orientation because then all the columns will fit more easily and it's more readable. If you are printing it, you could save it as a PDF if you're sharing it with colleagues or other advocates, and just make sure you run it as often as you need to see the updated text. And if you created a list last year in the first year of the biennium, maybe a measure tracking list on agriculture, you might want to consider renaming it to 2025 agriculture if that's something that's important to you. If you want to have a 2025 list and a 2026 list, it's up to you. All right, going back to our capital.hawaii.gov webpage. Um, the if you had searched for the Hawaii Revised Statute this way, more of a browsing option, this is another option if you don't quite know what you're looking for. You can click on Laws and Research, click on Hawaii Revised Statutes. It'll take you to the Hawaii Revised Statutes kind of table of contents view. If you know what volume it is, you can click on the left side volumes. If you know the chapter it is, you can click on the right side chapter ranges. There's also an index if you wanted to see an index. So, for example, you open up the document and you do a Control F for auditor or for education or transportation, whatever you want to do. That's another way to get to have it show you where your word shows up in the HRS. In this case, I'm going to click on chapter 1 to 42F. It takes me to the top of that volume page, and then the chapters start, and I can scroll down. If I know I'm looking for a section on the auditor, I can click on 23 for the auditor. And then within that, it's giving me all the subsections underneath that. And so, for example, if I knew I was looking for HRS 23-9.5, which is the confidentiality section, I could click on that. And now I'm in the HRS. And again, I can click on previous or next to go forward or backwards within the HRS. You can also browse the session laws. So we looked at in the primary search doing more of an active search. If you wanted to browse more or you didn't know a lot of information, you can go to Laws and Research and click on Session Laws, and then you can look at the session laws by year. And keep in mind that session law numbers are reused each year. So there's a session law one for 2019, and there's a session law or an act one for 2025. So if I click on 2019, it'll bring me up every single act that was passed in 2019. It'll also tell me what the budget bills are. And the same thing at the top of session laws, if I wanted to click on executive budget or judiciary budget, it'll give me a list of every act number and with the bill number for each year, which is a nice way to look at things if you like that. So in this case, I clicked on Act 251 of 2019. Now that I'm in it, because sometimes newspaper articles or website articles will talk about the act number, but you don't know the bill number. Once you find the act in the session laws page, now I know I could also go look up HB 665 for 2019, and I could find the testimony files or go back and see if there's any recordings of the hearings or see the steps that it passed or the committees it went through. These last couple slides is just kind of highlighting other things you might be looking for as you go use the capital.hawaii.gov website. So going back to reports and lists, I highlighted already, you don't forget you can do the drop-down menu to change years. You could look at appropriation bills or lists by committee referrals. You could find hearing notices, pending actions, all sorts of stuff on that left side. And here's a more zoomed in view of that. Back on the capital.hawaii.gov page from Laws and Research, you can find the budget page or the grant and aid page. Going to the budget page, for example, will bring you the budget worksheets. And this is when the House usually takes the first pass at the executive budget bill. and then the Senate will take a pass. Because there's so much content there, they'll make worksheets so it's more easy to compare what is the House proposing versus what is the Senate proposing. And especially as they go through, they'll be looking at that periodically, so there'll be different versions of it. Same thing for the judiciary budget and OHA, they'll have worksheets as well. If I go back to laws and research, I can click on archives. This is a great place to go, for example, if you're looking for information on a special session. So here I've got 2022, where there were three special sessions. I could click on that, and that would give me a kind of a summary view of any resolutions that were passed, any bills that were considered, or veto overrides, all in one place. You can also search by the measure status if you put in a bill number or a subject search. And on the left side is the document directories. That's where if I wanted to find testimony files, I could click on that. Just keep in mind that a lot of the stuff from the archives page is going to give you an HTML menu of like every testimony file. And so it'll really be more like I'm going to get it wrong, but it's something like the date and the committee name .html or .pdf. So you kind of need to know what you're looking for. But again, you can call us in PAR and we can help you navigate. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. All right. And then I think one of the last things I'm going to show you from the capital.hawaii.gov page, another way to get to the public access room, there was a link in the participate drop-down box. There's also a link in help and info. I'll also point out you can find maps and directories. So if you want to see floor maps of each floor of the Capitol where the legislator offices are, you can do that there. I believe the seating charts for the chambers is in that maps and directories link. And then if you come to the public access room website, a separate website, you can get up-to-date handouts. And here's a QR code that'll take you to the public access room website. The current legislature page is one that's very active right now. This is a QR code that goes to our PAR current legislature page. So we've got our session calendar, we've got our room and phone and email directory, we've got office manager list, committee clerks list we're working on right now, so that'll be posted soon. There are also lists by Senate and House. I think most of the Senate lists are pretty stable, knock on wood. The House lists are still being updated since the new representative for District 36 was announced this week. And so we'll be updating that information as it's all collected. And you can use any of these lists that you need to. This is an example of the Senate leadership and committee assignment list. You may notice that our handouts are a slightly different format or will be changing as we go through the session. There is a federal requirement that information posted for state governments of a certain size needs to be accessible to people using screen readers. And so we're trying to make changes to our websites to make that possible. So if you see some changes, just know there's a reason why we're doing it because we know change is hard. And then you can also click on our Engage tab from the Public Access Room website. We have handouts and short videos on using the Find Your Legislator tool, registering for an account, signing up for hearing notices, submitting testimony, including sample testimony. And there's a QR code that will go to this Engagement 101 page. And then we also have a lot of information in our Learn, on our Engage, and on our Persist pages of the Public Access Room website, along with our social media that's at the bottom of our Public Access Room webpage. And I do encourage you to follow us on Facebook or Instagram. We'll put short point of need posts like what deadline is coming up or what's happening in the legislature, or our YouTube channel, which here is a picture of our YouTube channel. If you weren't aware, last week Keanu did a Your Voice presentation on navigating the state legislative process, an overview of how the state legislative process works. That's been posted. And then yesterday, he did one on the calendar and deadlines, and it's been posted. We're finishing getting it on our website now, but the recording is there, as well as other past past webinars that we've done. We've also produced a PAR Advocates Guide. This is something that was a few years in the making. Virginia Beck, my predecessor, had started this with Keanu. It was a lot of work, but we hope that people find it interesting. It's 80 pages, so it's more for people who like to read information as opposed to watching our YouTube videos if you like to watch. And it compiles a lot of information about the Hawaii State Legislature into two parts. The first part provides an overview of the legislative process in the legislature. The second part is more on actions that advocates can take. And there's a QR code here where you can get to the page. It's under our Learn tab on our public access room website. And if you can't find what you're looking for, do contact us in the public access room. This is me and Keanu. Lacey's with us again from last year, and Janine is our newest session staff. Please do contact us if you have questions. We provide help and information at no charge. We're taxpayer funded. We're open year round. We're nonpartisan. So we don't focus as much on whether the policy is a good idea or bad idea. It's more on what is the process, the procedure to go through the legislative process. And we'd love to help you in any way we can. And with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Andy, I do have questions in the couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask a couple questions that we have, and then also Don had asked if we, how you got to the legislative process timeline.
Hmm.
And I was gonna type it in, but if you have time, do you mind showing her how to get there?
Absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, Noah is asking for the primary search if there's a way to limit the search to only 2026. And I think he's asking if it just defaults to 2026, on the primary search. And I
Yeah,
believe it
that's a great
does, but
question.
I just wanted to make sure with you that it just defaults.
Yeah. Okay, so from the primary search screen, can you see my search, the capital.hawaii.gov webpage? Am I sharing the right screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just typing in taxes. Right now it's an all content search, so it'll do all of the measures, but also other content types. So in this case, I'm just going to switch to measures to take out some of the clutter. And going with that question, because there haven't been a lot of bills introduced yet, it is defaulting. It came up originally with 0 results because there are no 2026 bills. So now it's on 2025. I'm trying to click it. Okay. And so as my expectation is that as bills are pre-filed, we'll see 2026 as an option. And so probably for the next week or two, there'll be a lot of changes happening. And then once I'm in the measures search, if I just scroll down on the page for the first result, I can see the legislative process timeline. And like I said, it'll show up for bills. There's not anything for resolutions. So this is a bill tool. And so here my third result has one that made it the entire way through the process. Does that seem like it answered both questions?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then Rachel is asking if there's a way to do primary search for related words. In the past with the keywords, they used to be able to search to use disclose, like disclose for disclosure and disclosing.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tried it recently. I know in the help button here at the bottom, it says, you know, search different words, use similar synonyms or similar search terms, but you have to do it separately. So children, keiki, or nurse, nurses. Um, I'll just search. I don't think a star will search. So I think even if you made it broad or exact, I don't think it's going to get nurses with nursing. But if you have feedback on that, you can either send it to webmaster@capital.hawaii.gov or you can send it to the public access room and we can forward that on. Because I think some of this they need to know how people had used it in the past.
Yeah, I think this is something that we're gonna have to kind of explore with, being that this is a new feature. Um, and as an extension of that question, Noah is asking, um, if they on the advanced search screen, if they can use waste or dispose, and um, adding other things like electronic smoking device. So they, if you know if it's going to work in the same way that it used to.
So I just did waste or dispose. I like a Boolean search. I put or like some library databases would do. It looks like what it's doing is pulling these up as three separate words. So it's pulling up or even though I meant it as a alternative rather than the specific word. So I think this is again something that you want to keep using. Like if I go to exact, it's going to say no because it's unlikely the phrase that you're looking for is waste or dispose. But if you do pull it over to broad, at least you're getting things with both words. Um, and it also just depends on how many bills have been introduced. So in this case, it looks like it's only bringing up one result for 2025, two results for 2020. So if you've done it in the past and you know there were more bills than this in 2025, I think that's information that can be sent to the webmaster to say, is there a way to make it work similar to what it did before? But I think, everything that I've sent them so far has been once I came across an example and said, is this working how it's supposed to, or can it be changed to do something different? So definitely user feedback will be important.
I think that's all the questions that we've received through the chat.
All right, well, we can stay on for a few more minutes if anybody else has questions. Otherwise, thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll try to get this on our PAR YouTube channel in the next day or two.